like it in here.
Hey, what's the matter with you?
Where did he go?
Wild. Put your soul into it. Wild. What's going on around here?
And welcome everyone to Haunting Live podcast this week. Thank you so much for being here. We are live on YouTube today, and thank you very much for everybody subscribing lately. We've noticed we had a large amount of people subscribing to our channel lately. So thank you very much for watching our posts. We do live paranormal podcast every week here with a special guest interview. And today we do have a very special guest here called The Whisper to Me, David. He will be joining us here in just a moment. But thank you everybody so much for following us lately. We do appreciate it. You can also follow us on our Facebook page and Instagram as well. So, but hope you're having a wonderful weekend. And yeah, today we do welcome our special guest, David. He has a business he runs called The Whisper to Me, and we're going to be talking to him today about his mediumship and what he does there. So let's bring on David today. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hope you are.
Yes, I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for being here on our YouTube today. We appreciate you coming on Haunting Live and talking to us about what you do.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so basically, tell us a little bit about how you got into being a medium and what your mediumship is about.
Oh my gosh, long story. I'll try to shorten it up. Ever since probably about earliest memory is about 5 or 6. In the houses that we used to have, as soon as my parents would put me to bed, there would be attic doors opening and closing, lights going on and off. This would happen constantly. And it didn't really scare me until they started messing around with electrical outlets. We had sparks going on, and then I thought it was nothing. I thought it was normal. And then as we started moving around, as when I was getting a little older, we moved from house to house. They used to say that house was haunted, but they followed us from house to house. So every house we went to, stuff like that would happen. And probably up till about 8 or 9, I wasn't really seeing them, but I could hear them, and I could hear them in my ears, and they would talk to me very softly. And then it went to what they call is, I guess, subjective clairaudience, where the thoughts would come in, but it was not my voice, which was always odd. I would tell people about it, and they'd say I was crazy kid, and I thought it was like kind of normal. It wasn't until when they took me to a Catholic church, I was telling them at the church that I talk to angels all the time. And they said, well, you can't do that. I'm like, well, yes, I can. I do it all the time. And they said, well, that's not for you. So, and then I went also then to my mom's religion, which was Southern Baptist at the time. And I sat in Sunday school, and they talked about hell. And my mom said I got in trouble because I stopped the teacher and I said, there's no such place. And she said, well, yes, there is, and pointed to the Bible. And I said, and my mom said, even as young as like 9 and 10, I was telling them there's no such place, and that's incorrect. I just had a memory, so I still remembered for some reason before I came over here. So that went on and on. I decided to hate it after a while because people just said I was crazy, and I was hearing so many voices. I thought I was crazy. So I started drinking when I got a little older and doing drugs, anything I could to not hear the voices or do anything. I just wanted to be a normal person. I spent a large part of my life doing that, but they would still come in, and then they started giving me information about people. I was walking up to people and they would say stuff like, this person has this disease, this person has that disease. It just kept coming in, and I'd be like, wait, why are you telling me this? And I got curious after a while. And it was one person that really hit it. I had met these people, and there's a guy in the group, and the voices had said, they said, that gentleman is going to die pretty soon. And I said, die? I can't predict death. I really can't. But the reason they told me that is because they said he had AIDS. This was back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I was talking to him. I got to know him a little bit, and I just asked him one day. I said, "Hey, are you okay? Or you feel good and all that?" And we were talking. He says, "Well, I didn't tell too many people, but I have AIDS." I'm like, "Shoot!" And anyway, he did end up dying about a year and a half later, which sucked. And it's not that they don't tell me when people are going to die. I don't know why they told me about him, except for the fact that he asked me a lot of questions about the afterlife. And I don't know why he asked me those questions, because I'd never told anybody that I talked to, heard voices or anything. And that just went on and on until I started doing readings as I got older here and there, just like psychic readings and stuff. And they were real accurate, and it was more of a party thing. And then I played with Ouija boards with friends of mine. And the Ouija boards would always say that I was going to die at 40, no matter what we did. Everybody would, I was asked that. It was a silly question when you play with the Ouija board. When am I going to die? It's 40. And my friends would do it when I wasn't there. They'd say, "We asked when you're going to die." And I said 40 again. And what happened is when I hit 40, I got sick. And when I got sick, not sick bad, but I got sick, and some friends brought me some paranormal books, and I started reading them. And as I started reading them, all these memories started coming back. So it wasn't that I was going to die at 40. At 40, I just had a new beginning. That's all that meant. It wasn't death. It was the death of the old life, new beginning. And I didn't know what to do with it anymore. In 2014, at the end of 2014, I asked God to please just let me die or something, because I didn't know what to do with this. I wanted a normal life. By early 2015, I was misdiagnosed and went into the hospital with sepsis and pneumonia. And then I died. And then I was in and out of a coma for 2 months, and brought back a whole bunch of information. And ever since then, I got really strong in the mediumship. It was getting stronger before that, but after 2015, it was super strong.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that now. I know you mentioned to me as we were talking that you did have an out of body experience, and that sort of opened you up more to your abilities that you have nowadays. Let's start with that. What happened exactly? You just said that you got sick and you did end up passing. Yeah. And sort of what was that experience like for you then?
Well, I've had out of body experiences before. When I was younger, I would astral travel when I was younger. I didn't know what astral travel was, but it would just happen. But the death experience, all I remembered from that in the beginning was being super sick. I won't go into that. It lasted for weeks. But when I finally closed my eyes, the last thing I said to somebody was, "I'm going to die now," because I thought, well, I asked to die, and here we go. And I closed my eyes, and that was it. Next thing I know, I was in this beautiful, it was like it was dark, it was almost like a night sky, but it was the most beautiful night sky I've ever seen in my life. No stars, no nothing. And there was two beings on my right and one on my left, and I knew them. I don't know how I knew them. I couldn't figure that out at first, but you just know, just like a friend or whatever. And I asked them right away. I said, "Where am I and where do I come from?" And they gestured in front of me, and there's this beautiful, amazing light. It was golden white, and it was on an angle. It's not straight up and down, because I always tell people, you don't go up to heaven, where actually the other side is right with us here. It's very close. And I saw beings going in and out of that, and they started showing me around. After that part, they took me to another place where I saw these light beings, I guess you could call them, but they were different colored lights, and they were angels as far as they were telling me, like our concept of angels. I saw them as lights, colored lights. I can't duplicate the colors. People ask me, they're like, "What color?" I'm like, I can't even reimagine it again. But I knew them. It was amazing because it's like the one that was like kind of red. It's like, I know you. What's up, red light? How are you doing? And they're like, how are you? And they went back and forth. I went from there to, which was strange, and I didn't know it at the time. Then I went through shaman sickness. I was torn apart, literally. I was shown all the things that I've done in this lifetime up till then, that I thought was terrible, that I thought was bad, that I had guilt about. And they're like, no, you didn't do anything wrong. That's how you're doing it. And then they went from there. Gosh, it's so hard. They took me so many different places. There's no time concept, everything happens at the same time, which is really hard to explain. It's not linear. Just going from, it's like a record. You like pick up a needle and put it on the record. It just keeps going around. So it's different. Then they took me to this beautiful place. It was almost looked like a Roman Colosseum or something. It was beautiful. It was white and it was marble. And I met my grandparents there, all 4 sets of them. They spoke to me a while. They told me I had to come back. And then I went to, they showed me a few of my past lives, and they showed me the past lives where I said in my past lives that I promised I would come back, because I guess I offed myself in one where I was supposed to be here, and I promised I would come back, and they said, you promised. So I came back again. I did pick up a lot of psychic information when you're over there. Most people have near-death experiences, their life completely changes, because when you come back here, nothing's as it seems before. Everything's different. You kind of see past all the bull. And they told me that my brother was going to come over, I had to go back, and that my dog was going to come over, and I had to go back. And it happened. After I went into the coma, I came in and out. I just made a video. Even when I was in the coma part, I guess I was still going back and forth, because I visited a place at my grandparents' grave, a house that I've never been in before, but in my dream I had, or dream we'll call it, I went into the house, I seen everything in the house, it was embedded in my brain. After the coma, about a year after the coma, I was with my mom at that graveyard where my grandparents are, and I had to go to that house that I saw in my dreams. They wanted to find out something about the flowers. I walked into that house, and the house was exactly what I saw. And I was like, wow, how did that happen? And that's what really started hitting me. It's like, wow, this really did happen to you. Because even when I came back at first, I thought, I don't know, how real is this? I don't know how real it was, but I started really hearing them, hearing other people, and everywhere I went, within a year afterwards, it took about a year after I came out of the coma, where they slowly brought everything really concrete. And I would stand next to a person and their loved ones would literally start talking to me, and I could see them. And I'd never said anything, because I don't believe in just, chatting out, hey, your grandma's here, who are you? But I started asking people, just, hey, do you know, this person, their name and all that? And they're like, yeah, that's my grandmother, or that's my mom, or whatever. They passed away. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm a medium. They want to say something. Is that okay? And then they would validate things perfectly. And it was like, it was weird. It was like, oh my gosh, this is so strange. But I've been working with it ever since. And I read for people all the time and teach people about what I know about the other side. I think people can learn a lot from everybody who's had a near-death experience, because it's all very personal.
Well, that is true. It's all very personal. And was that what you experienced when you were on the other side? A lot of personal things? Like, did they sort of tell you what you expected to know, I guess is what I'm trying to ask you, or was it totally unexpected things that you encountered?
You mean, did they tell me things? What did you ask now?
Is it like personal things that you expected to experience over there, or were they things that you weren't expecting that were kind of shocking to you?
Here's the deal, and this is what they told me. When people go over there, all the universal laws, there's something to them. And the universal law of belief states whatever you believe is what you get when you go over there, the first thing. So if you have, let's say, a strong religious background and you think that if you did something bad, you're going to go to hell, you have to pay for purgatory or something. When you go over there, if you have that belief, that's probably what you're going to see right away. They don't keep you there. And that's how I found out about ghosts later on, when people said, where do ghosts come from? Sometimes there are people who go over there, they're either very attached to this earth and they don't want to go into the light, or they heard that something bad's going to happen to them because of something they did, so they don't go, so they stick around here. That to me is what I think most of the ghosts that I've ever talked to, after we're talking ghosts, like when I used to do investigations and stuff, were afraid to go over based on what they were told before they died. I didn't have any of that. So I just said, wherever you need to take me. And that was it. So I didn't have anything preconceived about anything. They told me there was so much more that I'm not going to see yet, and I'll have to wait. But they showed me quite a bit.
Okay, now that was going to be my next question as well, is with the ghosts, were they, did you experience anything like that, those types of entities, or were you just crossed over immediately, then you just went through what you went through?
Did what now?
Did you experience any type of entities like the ghost or spiritual people or anything like that, or did you just cross over and they just put you through what you had to go through?
Oh, they put me through what I had to go through, but no, they showed me a lot of things. It was very quick. And what happened is, during the near-death part, that's where I went to the light and saw this, but then they must have kept it going when I was in the dream state. Afterwards, it was really quite odd. They did show me, I seen ghosts, and they seemed very welcoming to me. So they were like, hi, but you could tell they were different from the other side, the death part. You could tell they were more, still had their humanness about it, which was really odd. I didn't have my humanness over there. I did not have a body. It was very wispy looking. It felt absolutely amazing not having this body. I felt total, it's hard to explain. Anybody else who had near death, there's no fear, there's no anything. I mean, the emotions that we have here pretty much go away as you pass over there. I mean, it was absolutely wonderful. They showed me past lives, past people I've been with, and I talked to past people I have been with, and brought me back, but it was pretty quick. Now, during the coma part, I don't know what they did. The only reason we know it's strange is because when I came out of the coma, I was telling the doctors and nurses about certain things in the hospital, and they had my parents there, and they said, how do you know this? And I said, what do you mean, how do I know this? They're like, you were on a bed with a breathing tube in your mouth for a month and a half. You did not walk around the hospital. How'd you know this? I'm like, yes, I did walk around the hospital. I said, I was all over the place. I didn't even realize that I was in a coma. I was still, as far as I was concerned, I was just walking around. So I guess I was a ghost at that moment.
Yeah, certainly sounds like you were, probably because you were able to walk out and do things that you experienced, but to everybody else, you're still in the coma there. So,
yeah, it's strange. I saw my father crying next to me. I remember trying to tell him, I'm like, Dad, I'm fine. I'm right here. And he wasn't listening. And it was kind of strange to me. Probably the weirdest things, some of the things they put me through were odd. I went through the death of a lot of animals. I don't know why, but I never was able to talk to animals ever before this. I couldn't talk to animals on the other side, and I couldn't talk to animals who are living. After this, I can talk to the animals on the other side all the time, and they are really, they're just like people. They tell you everything. But I went through the death of some animals. I got to see what it was like for certain farm animals to go through what they went through, and the truth about that. And it changed me, because before I went in the coma, I was a heavy smoker, heavy drinker, and I ate meat. I did everything everybody else did. When I came out, my father said there was a point where I woke up out of the blue and started screaming, don't eat the animals, don't eat the animals. It's not right. And I went back into the coma. But then when I came out, when they were trying to feed me, the first thing they gave me regular food, and I started getting sick. Started throwing up. I started everything. They couldn't figure out why, and I started screaming, "What's in that? You know, I can't eat that." And they put me on a vegetarian diet. I've been that ever since. I can't even eat meat. It's really weird. Even if I wanted to, if I had to put it in my mouth, I'd get sick and throw it up. So I don't know what happened there. They said my brain reset. So I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like it must have because you had that experience, right? It probably really drilled it into like this is what happens after you eat
Oh
meat
yeah.
or eat animals, and they probably showed you the truth of what happens afterwards, right? So
Yeah, they showed me everything about it. And I mean, it's not, it's, for your people to watch, it is not a sin to eat animals. It's really not. It's in the treatment of it, what I went through, and I know what they feel. They don't feel like human beings. It's different. Um, they don't have, they don't have the conscious fear of like a dark forest. Like if we see a dark forest, we're not going to go into the dark forest in fear of like a monster or something's going to get us, or that animals don't do that. They walk in there, they don't know fear. They're very connected to this earth. I mean, they can see everything way more than we can. All animals can. And most animals know their death and we don't.
yeah, that's so true. I think they have a different mentality than we do. Like they have a different outlook and a connection than what humans do. Because obviously the way we treat them right, but like obviously we use them for our source as well too. So let's move on to your next step here. So after you had your out of body death experience and you came back, what abilities did you find that you had after you came back?
Um, when I came back, it probably took um, the first year. I didn't know me because before I went into this, I used to do stand up for a while. I was a musician for years. I was all that. I have no memory of stuff. People showed me videos of what I used to do, and I don't recognize it. I don't remember it. But when I came back, I could hear them perfectly. I can hear them really well. Actually, not like a regular conversation like we're having, but it's pretty close sometimes. And they wake me up at night. I can see them better. I can see them so I can describe them to people. That was new. Some of the knowledge that I came back with that I didn't know how I knew this stuff, I would write it, me and some friends and some other people who've had this, we'd write down stuff we just learned from the other side, and then we'd hand it to each other and we'd have them go validate it. And it was all validated stuff that they knew, stuff that we knew. Just a knowing, if anybody knows what claircognizance is, just a knowing. Uh, my knowing is such a knowing, it's disgusting sometimes. And sometimes I don't like it. I don't want to know what you do. So I came back with that. Just the way when I came back, they wanted me to explain spirituality a lot more simply than what people put out there. I know I'm not knocking other mediums. I don't read like other mediums. I don't, I'm just a normal guy. That's how I put it. I'm a normal guy. I talk to them. I have a conversation with them. So I talk out loud to them, and people find that fascinating. Because when they're sitting next to me or whatever, we have a conversation, and the person in front of me here's the one-sided conversation. Um, that's odd that I can have a conversation. I could never have a conversation like that beforehand. I would just get the images or so on and so forth. But now they actually talk to me. So it's like sitting with you.
Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of people that are mediums, they have to sort of meditate first, or they go into their trance state and try to connect that way, and they do it very, I guess, quietly. They don't speak it. So how was that for you when you started doing that? Was it unusual or?
No, I do trance sometimes, and I do channeling, and I've done it for live events. I didn't ask for that; it just started happening. It wasn't anything I asked for. Now, I will say I'm always me. I always tell people if this happens, I'm always me. Um, I never fell into the whole, like in the paranormal world, they talk about protection and demons and all this stuff. I don't pay attention to that stuff. Uh, I know it exists to a point. Of course, there's mean people here, there's mean people there, whatever. But They don't bother me. Nobody's ever possessed me. They had told me over and over, there's no such thing. Even the other side, that was one thing. And I know a lot of people hate to hear that, but they said, you cannot be possessed unless you give permission. So that person has to either give permission, be under the influence, or have a super low vibration before anything can come close. Now, my mediumship, when I talk to them, if I can't hear them well enough for something, I ask them to come close. I just like, come close, just do whatever you want to do, because I don't know what you're saying. And then they start talking. And during live events, they'll say, wow, you sounded like my dad. You had the same mannerisms. I'm like, yeah, it's because I'm too lazy to let them talk. It's a lot easier. I've learned not to interpret so much. I learned that if I try to interpret what they say, because mediums are a filter, it has to go through us, and it gets, if I'm having a crappy love life and somebody asks me about love, or they're, whatever, they're going to get part of me in that answer. And I got to put myself all the way over. But yeah, that's pretty much how it goes for me. I talk, I have the conversation. I do meditate before, like a whole bunch of readings. It's not like a long meditation. I just, I sit there a moment, I get with me, listen to myself, and I tell them, hey, I'm asking you to come through and give all the validations you can in order to heal these people. And that's all I ask for. And then they do it.
No, that's great. So you have your set ways of communicating with the other side, and then the messages just come through. Yeah.
It's weird. I mean, every medium's different though, and no medium, I think, does it the wrong way, because everybody does it. It's kind of like investigating. When you investigate places, there's not always a wrong way to do it. There's a better way, but there's not a wrong. People do what they do.
No, exactly true, and that's kind of how the show here, Haunted Live, came about, because we wanted to showcase how people do things their way. Because quite often in this field, you run into the issue of, well, you don't do things the way I do things, so I don't want to work with you. But that doesn't always have to happen, right? It's just the way you do things. So we want to show how people do things the same, but different ways. It's just the way that you do them. Can you talk about next any type of experiences that you've had dealing with maybe an interesting story that you came across, or something weird that happened to you when you're doing a case or doing a reading or something?
Yeah, I will. Actually, I was at this, it was like a Paracon. I used to do a lot of investigations, but I've stopped since now. I might do it again. Haven't decided yet. But I was at an asylum, a very huge old asylum in Indiana, with a bunch of people. Me and a friend who was a medium too at the time, we're working with. We went there. We were supposed to take this tour and be the mediums on the tour. So if people had questions, we could answer them. And before we got there, of course, the investigators filled us in on all these horrible things that happened in the place. And I'm like, yeah, of course, the horrible things happen everywhere, but okay, I'll listen. And we went on the tour. I did not know the tour guide at all. And we went on the tour. I was in the background, and we were up to this attic. It was a giant attic. I mean, oh my God, like a football field. Anyway, he was telling everybody how, up in this corner, how these guys used to get together and they held like court up there, and they used to lynch people up there, or they killed a long time ago. And they were saying how bad it is and everything. And then the guy looks at me and he says, can you talk to them? Can you try talking to them? We think they're here. And I said, sure. So it was dark, and there was about like 15 people behind me and the tour guide, and they got it on tape recorder, which is really cool. But I walked out and I said, hi, who's here? And they just started talking to me. And so they're talking to me, and I was telling them in my head about what they were saying about them, and they were chuckling. And one of them said, could we talk to Martin? And I said, yeah, hold on just a minute. So I turned around and faced everybody, and I said, they have a message. I want to talk to Martin. Who's Martin? And the tour guide just turned white as a ghost. And he says, I'm Ted Martin. I said, oh, okay, you're the tour guide? And then I said, is it Ted Martin? And then they said his wife's name. And I said, I won't say her name out loud, but I said, okay, Ted, I said, is this her name? And he just dropped his that poor guy was just a panic. And I said, yeah, that's my wife. And I said, what's the message? He said, what's the message? And I said, they want to thank you for doing these tours because they like this place. And that's all it was. And they corrected some of his information. And then they told him about a ledger that's at the museum that he ran. I didn't know he ran a museum, but I said, there's a green ledger. And they said that you should go through this ledger and read about so and so forth. So he did, and he got back to us the next day, when we all came back to the house again, and he brought the green ledger. He said, here's a green ledger, and here's all the stuff that was disproving a lot of the stuff that they were saying about these ghosts. And they weren't even ghosts. They just like hanging out there. That was a very weird experience right there. And then I've had the strangest thing probably wasn't even ghosts. The strangest thing that ever happened was seeing an alien when I was a child in physical form right in front of me. And I remember him to this day. And I only saw him, I believe I was about 6 or 7 when I saw him. And I saw him once since then. And now he's not around anymore. But he's very cool. And he was more physical. He was physical. It wasn't like the ghost. He was actually physical. He was standing there. It was very cool. But I see all kinds of those people. But I've got a lot of stories about that with ghosts doing the investigations. I found that there's some people that I respect highly that I've worked with. When they go in there, they do their investigations, and what their goal is for people to have an experience and to prove that there's life after death in that form. But then I've worked with groups where all they wanted to do is have this scare factor. That's all it was. And they would bring me in and they would get mad at me because I would tell them, no, that's not what happened. I said, why are you telling people this? And then the ghosts actually told me how places actually became haunted. And that was very interesting.
Yeah, I think we should have you back sometime because I'd love to continue talking about how you connect with different entities, how you connect with spirit. We've been talking a little bit about that today, but apparently you can connect to other entities like aliens and stuff as well. So I think that would be cool to have a separate show on.
Yeah, I've talked to aliens, talked to nature spirits. When I studied shamanism after I got out there, I've started talking to nature spirits quite a bit for a couple of years now. And they're just like talking to the people on the other side, the spirit people. Yeah.
We should definitely do that. Have another series with you here and invite you back to talk about that and other things as well. But before we do let you go here today, David, do you have anything that you have been working on lately that you want to talk about or promote your website or anything like that before we let you go?
Well, my website is theywhispertome.com. I have different kinds of readings there. You can do mediumship readings or just psychic readings. I do angel channelings on there. People can get that. I have a Facebook group. The strangest thing probably that happened to me is about 2 months ago, I was on TikTok. My friend said, go on TikTok. And I'm like, no, I'm too old for TikTok. I don't want to go on TikTok. Well, I went on TikTok. I wanted 1,000 followers so I could do a live. I got 1,000 followers in about 2 weeks. And I hated it. I said to the spirits, I said, why did you want me to do this? What's up? And they're like, answer questions. And I'm like, okay, what questions? And I went through the things and yeah, people had to ask me questions about stuff. So they kind of highlight questions. What they do is that when I look at the question, it just stands out. It's like real bold and just do it. And 2 questions came out and they're like, answer these questions. And I'm like, no, they're not answering these questions. They were like really dangerous questions I thought to ask. They're like, answer these questions, answer them. You know the answers. I went on there and I made 2 1-minute videos answering those questions. And both those questions went viral. And I went up to 50,000 followers in a couple of days. And now it went up to 75K. And that was just off answering those questions that Spirit said. So I listened to them. So basically, that's what I do. A lot of question and answer, just my website. I have a podcast, but it's called Mystic Stew. And I have a YouTube channel, but I have not done anything on it in a long time. I've been so busy. Yeah.
No problem. I guess people should definitely check you out on TikTok. That sounds like the place for you for sure. Congratulations on all the people that follow you, and that's really awesome. But thank you so much for being here as our guest here today on Haunting Live podcast. I appreciate you taking your time to tell us your story and your journey. It's been amazing to listen to, and I hope it inspires some people to listen to their spirits and guide them as well.
I wish people need to just start listening to that inner voice, because they don't just talk to me, they talk to normal people too.
That's for sure. So again, thank you for taking your time and being here with us on Haunting Live. I appreciate it very much, David. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye. Cut. Mean. That for you. Okay. And that was David. They Whisper to Me is his business that he runs. He's a medium and he does sessions like you said. So if you're interested in talking to David in person, just check out his website and follow him on TikTok. Apparently he has tons of followers over there as well. So thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you guys taking your time out and being here with us on Haunting Live podcast. This is actually our first live broadcast in a while on YouTube. The last few episodes we've done postings for you guys due to scheduling conflicts and stuff like that. So it's great to be back here live on YouTube with you. So be back here each and every week with us, and we will have a new paranormal guest to talk to each and every Sunday at 4 o'clock, just like we did today with David. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to share our work and follow us, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on Facebook as well. We do a lot of postings on our Facebook page too for you guys. And also, if you missed the live show here on YouTube, you can catch us on the podcast apps. We do upload the episodes to your favorite podcast player, which you can just listen to when you have time if you're too busy to catch the live show here on our YouTube channel. But with that, guys, don't forget to check out Chris. He does his readings on Saturdays, 8 o'clock on Divine Angel Readings. You can check that out. If you want to get messages from the angels, you can check him out at 8 o'clock on his channel. If you want to find out more information, just go to our website, which is HauntingLivePodcast.com, and check that out as well. And also he does different shows as well. On Mondays, he does live readings on Instagram, is it? Yeah, so check out his Instagram and his other social media as well. Also, don't forget, for those that are local here in Southern Ontario, we are holding our final Ghost of the Queens event this year. Unfortunately, due to some circumstances, this is going to be our final public event for that event. We're still going to be hosting different other events, but just for the Ghost of the Queens, this is going to be the final one. If you're interested in attending, we do still have a few tickets left. Go to HauntingLivePodcast.com and check the events tab. You can still purchase tickets for $200, and they are for a 2-day weekend on Halloween weekend, and you can come join us in person in Stratford, Ontario at the Queen's Inn and have some fun and meet us in person. So check that out. And also, finally, don't forget just to check out our website. Our official website is HauntingLivePodcast.com, and we have a bunch of great stuff on there, including a merch section where you can check out our products that we have available. Mostly things you can use in the paranormal field for cleansing items. We have crystals. We have some handmade items. We have a bunch of new products we just put on, including some brand new amethyst pieces that we handpicked from Thunder Bay, Ontario, one of the largest amethyst mines in the world. We were there just recently and got some brand new pieces we stuck on the website. And that's about it. So take care, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in to our first live broadcast in a while here on YouTube. We appreciate you tuning in. And again, thank you all for the recent subscribers. We had a bunch of new subscribers lately, so thank you so much for that. Oh, and before I do let you go, don't forget to check out a recent video we posted to do with Bathsheba. If you're into the Conjuring series at all, I had the opportunity to interview Andrea Perron. She is one of the members of the family that went through the hauntings at the Conjuring house itself. So check out what she had to say, to hear it from her own words herself, and find out what their family actually went through. So check that out. It's on our YouTube here as well. So with that, guys, have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. And we'll see you back here next week for Haunting Live Podcast with a brand new guest. So take care, guys.
Life's crazy. I don't like it in here.
Hey, what's the matter with you?
Where did he go?
on around you?